Moving forward.
Right now, a future president could be running as a local candidate on your ballot. This person is vying to represent you, your family, and your community. Do you know what they are and what they stand for? Vote411.org is your tool for accurate and unbiased, up-to-the-minute election information on the candidates running in local races. Just enter your address to get started. Your vote is your power, the power to decide who represents you in 2022 and beyond. Get online, get the facts, and make your voice heard on Election Day.
Moving forward.
Aloha.
Aloha, Jonathan. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. You ready for your interview?
Yes, I am.
Right on. Well, let's get right into the thick of it because I got a lot more candidates to talk to today. So thank you for coming on and taking the time to talk to all the voters of Hawaii.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right, so let's get started. Let everybody know who you are and what office you're running for.
So my name is Jonathan Lee, and I am running for State House in District 44, which is on the west side of Oahu.
Righteous. All right. And so before we get into your campaign and talk story about you, we're doing a little education for our listeners and the voters out there because some of them may not know the functions of offices in government. So could you give a brief description on what that office does?
Yeah, fantastic. So the state legislature is basically the ones who make the state laws along with the state Senate. So just like we have the House of Representatives and the Senate for federal laws, each state has their own House of Representatives and Senate. And so it was, we've had this for a long time, actually. Back in the Ahamoku system of governance, way back when we had a chiefdom in Hawaii, we had representatives that were the Ali Nui. And so this has been a long tradition in Hawaii. So state representatives have been around much longer than governor and a lot of other positions. So it's a real honor to run for this particular role because speaking for Hawaiians, Kanaka, and making up the state laws is a really good way to speak for the people of Hawaii and to help represent local values.
Right on. So let's get a little backstory on you, brah. What's your story?
So I am a single dad to a wonderful son who has autism, and I am originally from California, and that's where I joined the military, and I've been traveling around for about 11 years, going from place to place. And I eventually ended up in Hawaii, where that was my last station. And I fell in love with the island and the people and the culture. And I didn't want to leave. And I retired here. And I've been serving, on the federal level for so long. After I got out, I wanted to continue public service, and I thought the best way to do it would be through activism. So I've been very active working for Minority Veterans of America as a policy analyst, writing bills, legislation, helping minorities. I have a background in film. I actually worked in Hollywood in California before I joined. I was an editor, writer, producer. I've written children's books. But really, sort of in my later years as a dad to a special needs kid, I realized that there were a lot of systems that were put in place that were failing our keiki and not doing what they were meant to do. And through my journey, I had a lot of great people who helped me raise my son, but then I also saw a lot of cracks in the system that needed some help. And I thought with my background, having gone to a bunch of different colleges, including Harvard University, as well as UH West Oahu, I could use my sort of mixed culture, mixed background. I'm Portuguese, Mexican, Irish, Native American. I'm kind of a mixture of a bunch of different cultures and backgrounds. And I'm here at this moment where I felt that I could really represent the West Sides and fight for our community, our keiki, and the culture of Hawaii.
Right on. My tutu would call you on Heinz 57. You got the buffet of the human race inside you, bro.
I like it. I like it. Heinz 57.
That's what my tutu and all the aunties would call you if you super calabash mix you and Heinz 57. Takes all them ingredients to make you up. That's important, recognizing everywhere that we come from is important. So that way when we rationalize and we get to know candidates, we know they're just like us, or there's a piece of us inside of them. So, a little bit of Portuguese we share.
Yeah, Portuguese, exactly.
That's right, bro. All right, so let's dig into it. What would you say are the biggest parts of your campaign that you would like to bring notice to in our first talk story here?
I think one of the biggest frustrations going around knocking on doors, I've probably knocked on about 400-500 doors so far in my campaign. Traffic on the West Side is really unacceptable. I don't know, for anybody who's not familiar with it, going on to the west side of Oahu pretty much bottlenecks the H1 freeway, goes on to Farrington Highway, and people spend sometimes 1 or 2 hours in traffic going to and from work. And there's no way to drive all the way around the island, right?
Mm.
And when I talk to people about it, they're really frustrated. But at the same time, they also have a sense of, we've tried to get a route before. We've tried this before and it didn't work. And, the military, they've got so much land and they won't give it back. And, I tell them that success is not always linear. It's not always a straight line, right? That's also on a personal level too. When we go on our personal paths, if you're ever struggling with something personally, sometimes you gotta take setbacks. And there have been people who have tried before, and I'm not claiming to be the engine on this train. I'm definitely the caboose. There have been a lot of people who come before me who've had this idea, who have fought to have this done, and their work is really important, and they've driven the conversation forward. And I'm just continuing to push it along, and I really think we can get it done. There is a very strong desire to get this done, to get this road back from federal land, and then either have a new freeway built or get another kind of road done. So one of my big initiatives is getting access, getting an alternate route, which will help the economy. It will cut down on pollution of all these cars sitting in traffic for so long. Also gives us time, just sitting in traffic all day. I mean, think about all that time you're wasting sitting in your car that you're not spending at work, you're not spending at home with your ohana. So that's a big one right there. I've mentioned, my son's my life. Getting programs for keiki. I didn't mention this before, but I was in and out of shelters on the west side, sleeping on beaches before. My son and I were turned away from some of these places that, they should have accepted us. They were supposed to take us in, but we were discriminated against, and it wasn't right. And that's one of the things that pushed me to want to run. So I really want to make sure that our kids are taken care of. And so during COVID, the state approved free breakfast and lunch for K through 12 for all 297 public schools. I want to continue that program. I want to continue having free breakfast and lunch, because some of these kids, that's their only meal.
Yeah, that's
like if
right.
They don't, you know what I mean? Yeah, like that.
I don't think a lot of people understand food disparity in America, even though there's so much excess because of that's what America is. But we're at a point right now where it's almost somewhere between 1 in 8 and 1 in 10 children, depending on what state you live in, go hungry. So it's like classroom full of 40 children. There's at least 4 keiki in there who got nothing in their stomach.
Absolutely. And then there's some kids, I come from a family of educators. I was a teacher in the military. My mom was a teacher. My older brother's a teacher. Sometimes kids go to school and they're like, I had potato chips for breakfast. And, sometimes that's not a nutritious meal, And so imagine as adults going to work and all you had for breakfast was potato chips and you don't have lunch. You're not going to have a good day, if you're out driving a sanitation truck or working in an office. So why do we expect our kids to function well at school and learn if on an empty stomach? We wouldn't expect that of ourselves, So I feel like one of the best things we can do, to me, a no-brainer would be, let's make sure our kids are fed. Let's get nutritious meals that are locally sourced into their bellies, and I want to keep that initiative going. Another thing to diversify our economy is legalizing recreational marijuana. It's worked really well in other states.
That it has.
So legalizing marijuana would do a bunch of different things for Hawaii. It would diversify the economy where we wouldn't be so reliant on tourism dollars, which I think is something that recently a lot of people have wanted to do. We wanted to wean off of being so reliant on it, and COVID sort of exposed how much we relied on tourism money. Our second biggest industry is military, which is something that I also want to do, which is demilitarize our INA as much as possible. There's so much land that the military is occupying that, quite frankly, they don't really need, especially the Army. Again, this is not a new idea, but it's something that, with my military background, I feel as though I can speak that language. I understand how they work. I understand how officers are taught how to, for lack of a better word, BS members of Congress or politicians. And if I become one of them, I don't think they'll be able to BS me, because I've been to these bases here in Oahu. I've spoken to these top military leaders, and they've told me, we don't use a lot of this land. We're just doing push-ups in paradise is essentially what it is. It's so expensive to have troops out here. It's so expensive to ship Humvees and equipment And there's a lot of things they can't do out here, tank exercises, live fire exercises. And the Army has, I believe, over 150,000 acres of land. And I think if they can give some of it back, not saying get rid of all of them overnight, where, it's the bases are a ghost town. They have a system in place called BRAC, which is the base relocation enclosure. We can reactivate that, and they would integrate base housing into existing neighborhoods, and that would help with housing supply and hopefully have housing costs go down because supply suddenly goes up. All these houses are already built. We don't have to build new houses. All those buildings that are on base can be, occupied by local small businesses, and they can go in there and open up shops. And so I think by demilitarizing some of the INA, I'm talking like in my district, about 14,000 acres, we can build that road that I was talking about, which would open up business. I'm a pro-business Democrat. I don't know if I've even mentioned I'm a Democrat, but pro-business Democrat, moderate, who wants to bring business to the West Side, wants to be able to allow people to drive peacefully and not spend all their time in traffic. And I believe also by legalizing marijuana, we can have farmers. It would create agriculture jobs. We can provide grants for growers, and then all that revenue will go into our economy. All those tax dollars can go towards funding things like food for children or a new road. And so, yeah, those are some of my big ones. I could talk all day about this stuff, but I feel like I've been talking a lot.
That's okay, bro. We've only got so much time to meet you, but I hope that you'll come back after, in about a month or so, and we could really dig in deeper to these topics. I will have to say, I appreciate you're actually the third candidate I've talked to so far out of 50 that's actually brought up the marijuana discussion. So I think that's a big highlight because the voter base actually cares about it a lot, but there's not enough people running for office on multiple levels. So hearing it come from people running for rep or governor is really big for the constituents to hear right now, no matter what side they're voting on.
Absolutely. I'm not afraid to talk to Democrat, Republican, Independent, anyone, and it really is very popular. I think on a national level it polls at like 65% in favor of legalizing it. And our current governor, who's not running for re-election, he vetoed it last time it came up, and some other representatives who are currently in office also voted against it. And so I would be curious too to see which other gubernatorial candidates support it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting because I was talking with candidate Van Tanabe. He's very vocal about medical marijuana, and he was saying that when he went in and talked in those discussions and tried to talk on behalf of the community to present cases for why, he said what the most remarkably just headache conversation that came up was, oh, well, if we legalize marijuana, we got to legalize everything else. And it just became a slippery slope excuse for legalization because then, then it has to be meth too, bruh. And it's like, why?
Yeah, no, that argument doesn't really hold a ton of water. I mean, if you go onto the CDC website, they break down the effects of marijuana, and they also break down opioids, which are legal, and alcohol, which is legal. I mean, think about how many drunk driving accidents happen and how many times people get killed, and you don't see people saying, oh, we never should have legalized alcohol, right? Yeah. Like we should not make alcohol legal. And yet people, die of alcohol poisoning, alcoholism. There's domestic violence that comes from, alcohol abuse. That kind of stuff doesn't happen with weed. You might have somebody get the munchies or watch too much Netflix, but you can do a lot of the same things, a lot of the same laws with alcohol. They have to be 21. Low tax on it, so that if it's taxed too high, then there's going to be a black market for it.
Yep.
You can't be driving. Some common sense laws that go with it. But again, as a veteran who has dealt with the minority veteran community and other veterans with PTSD and pain, veterans who don't want to be on opioids, who don't want to get on addictive medications that are really dangerous, marijuana is a non-addictive pain reliever that on a medicinal level, it would be great. But right now, on a federal level, because the VA is who takes care of veterans, they don't allow veterans to have medicinal marijuana. And think about how much money Hawaii can bring in if we had all these local farmers, growing cannabis and selling it to the federal government to give to our veterans, which we have a huge veteran hospital right here in Oahu, Sparks Matsunuga VA hospital. We could be getting a lot of that money brought right here, to our farmers. And I feel like we've really missed out on it, but it's never too late to jump on that. But we got to start building the infrastructure for that now, meaning we got to start giving out licenses, the permits. We got to get these farmers the equipment and the things that they need. So I think the sooner we do it, the better. And how great would it be? People come to Hawaii to relax. How great would it be to come up to an auntie and uncle's little shack, and they got their Maui Wowie and their their different names for what they want to sell. And it would be something that could be a part of the culture. That again, it could be something that we can have locals thrive because of it.
Right on. Well, we've got just a little bit more time in this first talk story, and I'd like to ask you, and I've been asking every candidate, what do you think is something that people in the community can do for Hawaii right now, not just the election?
I think right now everybody's nerves are a little tense, right? Mm-hmm. We've all kind of been locked up. It's getting hot. It's summertime. Mm-hmm. We're all coming out of this COVID thing. Haven't been socializing maybe as much. Kindness goes a long way. I've noticed that a lot of people have so many things that they have in common. I come from a very conservative district. I know you said it's not about politics, but I can't help but think about it because I've been out. I've had this opportunity to meet so many new people in my community by going around knocking on doors, and so many of us care about the same things. We want to be comfortable. We want to be happy. We're worried about the inflation. We're worried about our kids. We're worried about our parents, grandparents. No, you never know what people are going through. So, our default setting should be kind. Just be kind to others. Be respectful, and I think we'll be okay. We'll get out of this all right.
Right on. No, yeah, I absolutely agree. A little patience with our neighbors goes a long way, and seeing eye to eye is what'll help in this time. I've got so much to unpack from our conversation, but I would absolutely love to invite you back in a month, and maybe we could talk a little more in depth about one or two of these subjects instead of just the whole calabash.
I would love to. I would love to come back. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate you letting me come on and talk about all this stuff.
Well, before you go, could you tell everybody how to follow, support, and be a part of your campaign?
Yes. My website is www.electjonathanlee.com. All my social handles are at Jonathan_Lee808. And that's the Instagrams, the TikToks, your Twitters, all of that jazz.
Righteous, bro. Well, mahalo nui for coming on today, and I look forward to talking to you again.
All right. Thanks. You too. I appreciate the opportunity.
Aloha.
Mahalo.
Rabbit Holes is a Manava Cow production. This episode was produced by Kawika Hoke and Sarah Rodriguez. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast platforms to add our weekly episodes to your queue.